Hi, I'm Coach Chip Smith, founder of Chip Smith Performance Systems. This is my 29th year of training NFL talent. I'm excited today to announce that I have partnered with Pro Football Hall of Fame Academy. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have trained over 1,500 players. You know, some of the quarterbacks that I work with, I've actually had 4 Heisman Trophy winners. Danny Werfel, who played at Florida. I had Jason White that played at Oklahoma. I had Eric Crouch that played in Nebraska, and then certainly Cam Newton. I trained him when he was in college. On top of that, I've had Colin Kaepernick. I've had Tyrod Taylor. In fact, I've had about 50 Division I quarterbacks in the last 7 years. I've also been blessed to have worked with a lot of good running backs. Andre Williams with the Giants. Eddie Lacy, the perennial Pro Bowl back with the Packers. Zach Stacy, who is with the Jets. Garrison Hurst played for 13 years, was a perennial Pro Bowl player, 2-time comeback player of the year. My wide receivers, Mike Williams, who was a top 10 pick with Detroit. Kamar Aiken, who plays with the Ravens. Chris Conley's with the Chiefs. Brian Quick with the Rams. Bryce Butler with the Cowboys. So again, I've been very blessed and fortunate to have worked with a lot of great names. These are current guys that are playing. When you put 1,500 guys in the NFL, it's kind of hard to keep up with all those guys, but there's some really good players that are currently playing on rosters today. About 250 current NFL players are family members of ours. Some of my D-line guys you might recognize: Albert Haynesworth, Jared Allen, Coney Ely. Had a great Super Bowl this year. In fact, would have been an MVP if Carolina had won. Geno Atkins. Some of my O-line guys: Zach Strief with the Saints, Mitch Morse starting center with Kansas City, Ali Marpet with Tampa. Ali was a D3 player that played at Hobart College that didn't have a draft grade. It ended up getting drafted in the second round this year in the draft. Ali became a starter at right guard with Tampa, made the all-rookie team, and is a tremendous player. Matt Paradis. Matt was a starting center with the Broncos this year and won a Super Bowl. He was the last guy to snap a ball to Peyton Manning. My linebackers, certainly one of the biggest guys that I've ever trained. Is going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame player, Brian Urlacher. I was with Brian for 13 years. Keith Brooking, another 13-year vet that was a Pro Bowl player. Marcus Smith, who's with the Eagles with us right now. One of the all-time greats with the Steelers, Jason Worrell. And then my DBs, again, another Hall of Fame player, Champ Bailey, who will be a first ballot Hall of Fame. Played in 13 Pro Bowls. Larry Asante is a current safety that plays with the Raiders. Brandon Boykin plays with the Steelers, and then Nolan Carroll, who plays with the Eagles. Some of my specialty players: Patrick Manley, played 17 years with the Bears as a long snapper, the best that ever played that position. Steve Weatherford is a great punter, played a long time. Adam Polish was a punter, played a long time. My fullbacks: Jerome Felton was a Pro Bowl fullback with the Bills. Bruce Miller, starting fullback with the 49ers, and Nikita Whitlock, who's a starting fullback with the Giants. So all these guys are guys that are part of our extended training family that we've been blessed to have worked with over the past 29 years. Let me tell you my story. I was a collegiate football and baseball player, and I'd been taught growing up that speed was heredity, that you could in fact not increase speed. In 1987, I got selected to study abroad, and I went to the Soviet Sport Institute in Moscow, where I studied speed development in pre- and post-pubescent training. And what the Russians convinced me during that time is, as coaches, we were training our athletes all wrong. We were making them big and strong, but we didn't train sport-specific, and we didn't train position-specific within that sport. And that really made a huge impression on me because, again, as a former running back and a second baseman in baseball, I should have trained different than a catcher or a center fielder, or as a football player, as a running back, I should have trained completely different than a wide receiver or a quarterback or an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. So when I got back in 1987, I sat down one day and I wrote out a 6-week program based on what I learned. And what I learned, actually, the way that we train is an acronym. It's called the MORE. And MORE stands for, it's an acronym for movement, overspeed, resistance, and reaction. And so in our system that we've developed, we're able to train each position by training within the MORE system. For example, if you're an offensive lineman, you're working on an inside zone or outside zone, or you're working on a combo block or a full block or a pass set or a redirect. All the things that you do as an offensive lineman, well, we're able to train that with resistance in a movement without impeding the mechanics of your movement. We're also able to train that with reaction, where you see something, you hear something, your brain processes that, that's a learned response. We're also able to train with overspeed or reversibility of effort. So again, we can train very specific to the sport you play and the position that you play within that sport. So that made a lot of sense to me. So when I got back in 1987, I started working with some NFL players. We were able to increase their measurables in a very short period of time. We increased their vertical, decreased their 40 by 2/10. We increased their 225 by 8 to 10 reps. We increased their vert by 4 to 6 inches. We put on lean muscle mass. We decreased body comp. All their measurables we did pre and post testing, and we were able to show improvement in a really short period of time. So what that translated to is in the early 1990s, I was one of the very first sports performance coaches that started doing combine prep, getting players ready for the NFL draft. So during the 90s, I was very blessed and fortunate that I had some great athletes that I was able to work with as that industry started. It was a cottage industry when I started, and now it is an industry. I'm excited to partner with Pro Football Hall of Fame Academy and my good friend Rich McGinnis. Rich and I go way back. Being in the industry for almost 30 years, I've run across coaches and in all sports, but especially in football. And Rich, who started the Army All-American game, we've had a lot of players that have played in that game. So Rich and I developed a friendship and an admiration for each other over the past 30 years. So when Rich approached me about partnering with Pro Football Hall of Fame Academy, I was extremely ecstatic. The fact that I've put more guys in the National Football League than any sports performance coach in history. The reputation that Rich brings, his passion for working with middle school, high school kids and preparing them for college, with our system, we think we're on to something where we can take kids and we can prepare them physically and mentally to be able to play and compete at the highest level. You know, one of the unique things about my system is that I've developed 13 pieces of proprietary training equipment. For example, when I trained Champ Bailey back years ago, I invented something we call the Black Widow that adds resistance in his back pedal. That's one of the things that he wanted to do, is become more efficient in his back pedal. I also developed a punch belt that Jared Allen helped me develop, where it acts in resistance in the punch. So you can train your hands to be fast just like you can train your feet. I've also invented a training aid called a chip-o-meter. I'm not vain enough to name it after myself, but I sent it to Duke basketball for a year, and their strength and conditioning coach at that time, Coach Sonny Falcone, called me and said, "What do you call these things?" And I said, "I have no idea." But what they do is they add resistance and extension in your leg and overspeed and flexion in your leg. So I have 13 pieces of equipment that are not on the market to be able to use to make your athletes better. You know, what makes my system unique is the fact that it is a system. The Moore is a national recognized certification. It's also been put into a master's program. So as far as we know, I have the only master's program in the country in human performance in my system. So with my proprietary equipment that I've invented, that we use with our athletes, we're able to get results in a really short period of time. So we're really excited to be able to bring that to young athletes today, to be able to train in the same system that has trained more professional athletes than any system in the world. We invite you to have a life-changing and career experience at the Pro Football Hall of Fame Academy.